Hello, welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. And I recently, a few days ago, ran across a YouTube channel about the 80s. As a matter of fact, it's about a couple that likes to live their life like they're living in the 80s, kind of. They have a lot of 80s memorabilia around the house, and I guess they grew up in the 1980s and are very much, I guess, into that time frame, and I guess very much probably have a big desire to go back in time and be in the 80s. But it seems like they try to live their life like they're in the 80s, and they discuss all kinds of various things that are related to the 80s. And I remember the whole 80s. I actually remember the whole 70s. But what I'm going to do today, this inspired me to put this video together. I'm going to actually discuss memories I have of the 1980s, and I'm going to go over each year, 1980 all the way to 1989, and just kind of look at the chronicle of what went on that year. And I'm going to actually discuss what I remember of what's chronicled of the year 1980. Jimmy Carter, January 20th, 1980, Jimmy Carter announces the U.S. will boycott the Olympics in Moscow. I do remember that one. Rubik's Cube makes its debut at a British Toy and Hobbies Fair, Earl's Court, London. Blondie releases the single Call Me on February 1st. The February 13th of 1980 Winter Olympics opened in Lake Placid, New York. And February 22nd, I remember this one real well. That was the year that the U.S. hockey team upset Russia 4-3 at Lake Placid, New York, and the U.S. went on to win the gold medal in hockey. That was a major thing that happened. Them beating Russia. They had done an exhibition game with Russia and had gotten beaten pretty badly. So that was a major thing of that year going on. And I was going to mention Jimmy Carter was the president in 1980. The rest of the year, the rest of the decade, it was run by Republicans, mostly Ronald Reagan, and then following by George Bush. There were quite a bit of events that happened in 1980, but like I said, I'm mainly just summarizing what events that I remember and events that I consider appropriate. The Pac-Man video game is released in Japan, later becoming the best-selling arcade game of all time. That was on May 22nd of 1980. The first time, May 24th, first time New York Islanders won the Stanley Cup over the Philadelphia Flyers. And that was the year, I believe that Montreal was dethroned, the Montreal Canadiens. They had won the Stanley Cup 4 years in a row, and they finally lost the deciding game at home to the Minnesota North Stars. I remember that. That was a big thing. Canadians were dethroned. June 3rd, Jimmy Carter wins enough delegates for renomination. Ted Kennedy actually tried to run against him, which is kind of surprising when you've already got an incumbent that's going to, run on the party's ticket. Proclamation 4771 on June 27th is signed by President Carter, which requires men between 18 and 25 to register for a peacetime military draft. July 17th, 1980, Republican National Convention in Detroit. Ronald Reagan formally accepts Republican nomination for U.S. President. On October 21st, Major League Baseball Philadelphia Phillies beat the American League team Kansas City Royals 4-1 in Game 6 of the World Series, with the Phillies winning the championship. October 21st, Mikhail Gorbachev is elected member of the Politburo. November 4th, 1980 presidential election. Republican candidate Ronald Reagan defeats President Jimmy Carter in a landslide. On December 8th, historic day, John Lennon was shot and killed by Mark David Chapman in front of the Dakota apartment building in New York City. Pretty sad time. December 14th, thousands of music fans hold a 10-minute vigil in Liverpool for John Lennon. Another memory I didn't see on the Chronicles, but I remember the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl in 1980. I was surprised when I was looking at the January Chronicle of 1981. I don't see anything about the Super Bowl winner. I remember the Super Bowl back then was played in January. Just gonna take a look here, and yeah, I don't see anything on that. I will go over the Super Bowls later on in this video, but going on to 1981. January 12th, 35 below zero is recorded as a state record in Chester, Massachusetts. Boxer, January 19th, boxer Muhammad Ali talks 21-year-old out of committing suicide. Good thing. Huh. Ronald Reagan is inaugurated on January 20th as the 40th President of the United States of America. If I remember right, I believe the weather was so cold that the inauguration had to be held indoors, if I'm not mistaken on that. January 28th, William J. Casey becomes the 13th director of the CIA, position he will have until 1987. February 6th, the Beatles members Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison record a tribute to John Lennon, who was assassinated in December of 1980. February 23rd, Prince Charles announced his engagement to Lady Diana Spencer. February 27th, Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder record Ebony and Ivory. March 30th, Ronald Reagan is shot and wounded in an attempted assassination by John Hinckley. I remember this event. May 13th, Pope John Paul II is shot and wounded by Turkish gunmen in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. He later on recovers. June 12th of that year, the first Indiana Jones film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, premieres. June 20th, Pope John Paul II is hospitalized for 55 days for an infection, just 17 days after he was released. Film June 24th, For Your Eyes Only, 12th James Bond film is released. July 29th, Prince Charles marries Lady Diana Spencer. On this day, she became the Princess of Wales. August 1st, Endless Love is released by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie. Become Billboard Song of the Year in 1981, as well as Billboard's Greatest Song Duet of All Time. I do remember that movie came out. I was working in a movie theater back then. Oh, I remember this event too. I was actually going to Redskins preseason game that night when they're selling the last issue. The Washington Star ends its publication after 128 years. August 24th, Mark David Chapman is sentenced to 20 years to life in prison for the murder of John Lennon. September 12th, the Smurfs first broadcast in North America. I thought for some reason that the Smurfs were started before 1981. Rolling Stones began their 6th U.S. tour, starting at the JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. I remember that big stadium. The time I saw it, and then I think 1989, the thing was condemned and was on the way to demolition. Moving on to 1982, January 11th, in Atlanta, the temperature is recorded 0 degrees. January 13th, Hank Aaron and Frank Robinson are inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. January 22nd, snow covers 75% of North America. January 26th, unemployed population in the UK rises above 3 million, first time since the 1930s. February 1st, Late Night David Letterman show debuts with Bill Murray as his first guest. February 24th, Boston Celtics began an 18-game winning streak in the NBA. June 11th, E.T. the Extraterrestrial is released. I remember that movie. September 1st, this United States Air Force Space Command is founded. September 15th, first issue of USA Today is published. Yes, I remember that newspaper. I think it's still around if I'm not mistaken. September 29th, in Chicago, 7 are killed by taking cyanide-laced Tylenol capsules. Yes, I remember the tampering with the Tylenol. Cats opens on Broadway. It would run for nearly 18 years before closing on September 10th, 2000. So that lasted a long time. October 29th, Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney released Girl Is Mine. November 15th, funeral service is held for Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev in Moscow's Red Square. November 20th, youngest person to ever host Saturday Night Live at age 7, Drew Barrymore hosts it. January 30th of 1983, Miami Dolphins are beaten by the Washington Redskins 27-17 in the Super Bowl. Yes, I remember that real well. I remember that was the year that Joe Gibbs was hired as the coach of the Redskins. The year before, the team started out 0-6. Owner Jack Kent Cooke was almost ready to fire him. He was thinking about bringing former coach George Allen back, but they let Joe Gibbs continue. Next year, they won the Super Bowl. And 1982, that was the year also where you had the NFL players strike, which was a sad time. You had several weeks without football before it came back. And that's the year the Redskins won the Super Bowl. February 4th, Karen Carpenter dies from complications caused by an eating disorder at age 32. I had thought for some reason it was near Christmas when that happened, but no, I guess that was actually Ricky Nelson that was killed in a plane crash, I believe, now that I think about it. Michael Jackson's Thriller goes to number 1 on February 26th. Most watched finale on TV ever. 105.9 viewers turned to see the last episode of MASH. It was to remain the biggest television event until the Super Bowl in 2010. Though it already existed in Japan and Europe, US released CD players through a compact disc player. Cost over $1,000. They proved to be extremely popular. You're starting to see vinyl disappear from the record stores and start getting replaced by CDs. I do remember that. I remember there used to be record stores all over the place. Not so much now. Sally Ride becomes the first American woman to launch into space. Her supporters at the launch wear t-shirts printed with lyrics from Wilson Pickett's famous song, Mustang Sally Ride, Sally Ride. After performing 1,567 times, musical Evita completes its run on Broadway. The run Sally Ride was June 18th. June 25th was the one about Evita. August 6th, first ever NFL game played in Europe. It's played at Wembley Stadium. Miami Dolphins beat the New York Giants 13-10. September 1st, Flight 007 of Korean Airlines from New York to Seoul via Alaska is shot down by Soviet Su-15 interceptor, killing all 269 people aboard. September 16th, President Reagan announces that GPS will be made available to the public, though it was originally intended for military use only. That's a part of the history I didn't know about or don't remember. November 20th, the movie Terms of Endearment makes its premiere, starring Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine. December 11th, Pope John Paul II becomes the first ever pope to visit a Protestant church by visiting Rome's Lutheran Church. Getting to the year 1984 is actually the first year I started working retail after working in movie theaters. Let's see what I can remember from that year, what I can recollect. Super Bowl is played at Tampa Stadium on January 22nd. Los Angeles Raiders beat the Redskins 38-9. I remember that the Redskins, I think, only lost 2 games that year, and both were by 1 point. And remember they had that couple, I think they wiped out a couple of teams at home in the playoffs, and then they had a game where they were leading the 49ers 21-0, and then the 49ers tied it, and then they got into field goal range, and the Redskins won on a Mark Mosley field goal. February 8th, opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics are held in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia. April 9th, 56th Academy Awards, Terms of Endearment wins 5 of the 11 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor for Jack Nicholson. June 29th, the album Purple Rain is released by artist Prince. July 17th, the national minimum drinking age is passed in America. Those under the age of 21 cannot buy or possess alcohol. Before the act is passed, the legal drinking age varied from 18 to 21 depending on which American state you're in. Yes, I remember that. 18 was the drinking age for beer in Virginia. I remember that, and probably one of the reasons there's such a big there's such a big priority to get that age raised was because kids were getting drunk on prom night and getting killed in accidents. July 28th, the Summer Olympic Games open in Los Angeles. August 3rd, Mary Lou Retton of the USA's Olympics gymnastics team scores perfect 10 for her final vault. First American woman to win an Olympic gymnastics gold medal. August 25th, American author Truman Capote, author of Breakfast at Tiffany's, dies of liver cancer at 59. NASA, August 3rd, NASA Space Shuttle Discovery takes off on its maiden voyage on mission STS-41D to deploy 3 communication satellites. September 24th, American sitcom Happy Days is canceled after 11 seasons. October 13th, Stevie Wonder reaches Billboard #1 in the U.S. with his song I Just Called to Say I Love You. Detroit Tigers won the Baseball World Series, defeating the San Diego Padres. That was October 14th. October 16th, Archbishop Desmond Tutu is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. November 6th, Ronald Reagan defeats the Democratic candidate Walter Mondale with a landslide victory. Democrats only gained majority in one state, giving the Republicans 49. November 9th, horror film Nightmare on Elm Street is released in the United States. December 1st, Beverly Hills Cop, starring Eddie Murphy, makes its debut. December 22nd, Madonna's single Like a Virgin goes to Billboard #1 in America for 6 weeks. All right, moving on to 1985. First mobile phone call in Britain is made by Ernie Wise to Vodafone. January 29th, Born in the USA makes its debut. Released by Bruce Springsteen. January 21st, Ronald Reagan is inaugurated as President of the United States for the second time. On February 16th, 43,816 is the largest NBA crowd to date in Detroit. February 17th, first class postage rises from 20 cents to 22 cents. February 19th, Cherry Coke is introduced by Coca-Cola in cans and bottles. I remember that. I believe New Coke came out sometime too during that year, and Diet Coke as well. Didn't see that on the Chronicles, but I seem to remember that. Okay, here we go. April 23rd, Coca-Cola introduced New Coke, a sweeter version of their original drink, which was not popular at all. May 16th, Michael Jordan is named NBA Rookie of the Year. May 22nd, A View to Kill, last James Bond film to star Roger Moore, premieres in San Francisco. May 31st, New Orleans Saints, American football team, is sold for $70,204,000. All right, June 10th, Coca-Cola announces they are bringing back their original formula. Yep, like I said, it wasn't very popular. June 27th, Route 66 is decertified. The route is from Chicago to Santa Monica. July 3rd, Back to the Future is released. The film goes on to become a cult classic. Yes, I remember that. I remember after seeing that movie, I was going through the beginning stages of chicken pox. At age 23, I had the chicken pox. Boy, I felt like I was going to die for a couple of days. Didn't know what I had. July 10th, Playboy and Penthouse published nude photos of Madonna. I remember that one too. July 19th, Krista McAuliffe is chosen to be the first school teacher flying a space shuttle. She would later die in a space shuttle Challenger disaster in January 1986. September 29th, first of 5 cyanide-laced Tylenol victims dies. November 19th, U.S. President, Soviet leader meet for the first time. December 16th, The Color Purple premieres in New York. Whoopi Goldberg and Danny Glover star. And I'm going to do a part 2 on this. I had no idea how long this is going to take. I've only gotten through about half of the decade, and I'm already almost at 28 minutes, so there will be a part 2. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.